welcome to the Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting of January the 7th, 2025. I am Briggs Simmons, the Planning and Zoning Chair. Prior to this meeting, announcements were posted and notices were sent to all board members, commissioners, staff, interested parties, and applicants participating in the meeting. I will now turn the meeting over to Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones, Madam Chair, to introduce and confirm the presence of the commissioners.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. I'm Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones, the Chairwoman of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, and certainly I would call roll tonight to acknowledge my Board of Commissioners, Vice Chairman Mark Alcaraz,
Present.
and District 4, and District 2 Commissioner Kenna Jones.
Present.
District 3 Commissioner Martin Raxton.
Present.
Okay, and it's my understanding that our District 1 Commissioner is on his way momentarily. So we do have a quorum, and I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also present, we have members of the Planning and Zoning Board. If you'd confirm your presence when I call your name. Our Vice Chairman, Rob Thomas from District 3. Brandon Penniman from District 1.
Present.
Ori Curry from District 2.
Present.
Frank Payne is our at-large member.
Present.
And Chris Small, our school board representative.
Present.
At this point in time, District 4 is vacant. We do have a quorum. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will now introduce the county staff and the Planning and Zoning staff present. Ms. Duncan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have with us our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Stewart Stanley. We have our Chief Assistant County Attorney, Audrey Lewis. We have our County Engineer, Travis McDonald. We have representatives from our Douglas County DOT. We have Suleiman Rana, our Managing Director, and Bruce Mercer, our DOT Engineer. We have with us our Zoning Administrator, Austin Cronin. We have our Planner, Melody Glenn. And as always, I would like to thank our Sheriff's deputies for being with us, and I'd like to thank our communications team for being with us tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the agent, applicant, or property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners grants an approval. As far as tonight's procedures go, I will conduct the public hearings. Planning and zoning staff will announce each application, followed by a full presentation on that application. The applicant or their representative and members of the public in favor of an application will also be able to present their information. We are allocating 2 minutes per person for a total amount of time of 15 minutes to speak in favor of an application. Members of the public in opposition to an application will also be able to present their information. They too will have 2 minutes per person or 15 minutes total allocated time. After the opposition completes their input or the time has elapsed, public hearing will be officially closed. At this point, the staff will clarify any points of the zoning case. If the staff is unable to satisfy the board's questions, the board will then ask the applicant for points of clarification. And this is not a time for the applicant to represent their case. Planning and Zoning Board will then entertain a motion. Our first agenda item tonight is the approval of the minutes of our December the 3rd, 2024 regular Joint Planning and Zoning and Board of Commissioners meeting. Planning and Zoning Board members, after reviewing the minutes, are there any comments, changes, or questions? If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of December the 3rd?
This is Frank Payne. I recommend approval of the minutes from the December 3rd, 2024 meeting.
It's Rob Thomas, a second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of December the 3rd, 2024, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chair, the minutes of December the 3rd, 2024 meeting come to y'all with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review the minutes, but of course, after reviewing the minutes, are there any revisions, comments, or that need to be made? With that being said, if none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the December 3rd, 2024 meeting?
So move.
Do we have, okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. For the minutes, we have a 4 unanimous vote and the motion carries, and we have no opposition. So I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point in time, last meeting, we tabled M 2024-07, Z 2024-55, and S 2024-56. At this point in time, Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion to remove these items from the table?
This is Brandon Penham. I make a motion to remove the stated items from the table.
Do I have a second?
Ford Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second to remove these items from the table. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, on December 3rd, 2024, we tabled item M 2024-7, Z 2024-55, S 2024-56. Do we have a motion to untable?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to untable M2 024-07, Z 2024-55, and S 2024-56.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please indicate if you're in favor of untabling this item. Indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 4 unanimous vote and the motion carries with no opposition. And I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Duncan, at this point in time, could you bring us up to date on where we are and any additions or changes since the last meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As a reminder, this is a request for a future land use map amendment. The amendment would be to go from suburban living and parks, recreation, and conservation to commerce center. This is also a request for rezoning for residential low density to light industrial and a special use permit to allow a data center over 50,000 square feet, utility substation, and also to exceed the impervious surface allowed in the Dog River Basin. So this project is located on Veterans Memorial Highway in District 4. We did receive, after the public hearing on December 3rd, we did receive some updated information from the applicant. I am prepared to present the updated information from the applicant. However, because the public hearing happened in the December 3rd meeting and the public hearing is now closed, I also want to express the concern that the information received from the applicant was received on December 30th. And so if it is the inclination of the board to consider any of the information submitted on December 30th, it is my recommendation that this be tabled again to the February 4th regular meeting and re-advertised for public hearing so that the staff and the community can have ample time to review all of the updated information. If the board would like to move forward with a vote, it is the recommendation of staff that that vote be taken on the information that was originally submitted in the application, reviewed by all the relevant planning departments and the regional review agencies, as well as the information that was reviewed by the community and spoken to as a part of the public hearing. It is not my recommendation that you would make any approval contingent on the new information that was submitted December 30th, because there has not been adequate time for the community or the various reviewing departments at the staff level to provide you feedback. With that being said, I can give you an overview of what was submitted unless the board chooses to take a different action at this time.
Board, how do you feel? Do you want to hear it? Do you want to take action?
I think in favor of this, we need to probably take a look at what the new is and make a determination on tabling it based on the information that you were provided.
Okay.
Okay.
If that is the will of the board, I have moved forward in my presentation to the section of the staff report that provides information on the items that were different. So one of the things that was submitted after the December 3rd hearing was, just one moment.
I wasn't clear on the motion, just for consideration, Audrey Lewis with the legal department. Was the consideration to hear the new information tonight, or was it to hear the new information and table?
Is she allowed to give us the brief overview
Yeah.
without giving us all the information? 'Cause
So
she-
the concern that I have, and which is why I'm up, and which is why the recommendation was made before you get into that, is my concern is, and Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, this was not advertised as a public hearing? So it was not advertised as a public hearing. So we do have a responsibility and obligation under the law to notice the public. And so if any information is new and is going to significantly alter what was advertised previously, then the public should be appropriately noticed of that. And so that would be the position of legal in terms of that, because you want to give equal opportunity.
So in doing that, that just means we just have to table it so that they can take a look at what was presented.
It would be legal's position that if you guys do want to move forward and consider the new information, then that the public hearing be reopened and advertised according to what the new information would provide.
And just to clarify, you're saying that if she was to present the new information, we couldn't open up to discussion or answer any questions because it wasn't open for public at this point, correct?
Well, there's two issues. One, procedurally, you all closed the public hearing.
Okay.
Right.
Right, and so it was tabled for a vote. And so in addition to that, if you're going to alter the information or new information is going to be considered that significantly alters the character and nature of what was advertised previously, then the public hearing and their comments were predicated based on that, and or that perhaps their decision to attend or not attend. So you, by going forward without advertising that consistent with what the new character is, you've deprived the public of the opportunity to be noticed.
Okay.
Okay, so we basically need a motion to table it again until,
Yes, I
February.
think if you want to consider the new information, then that would be the recommendation.
Okay. What's February? What? Fourth.
February 4th would be
Okay.
our next hearing, and we would provide all signage and legal advertising update if it is your intention to consider the new information, is my understanding of what our attorney is telling us.
Okay.
Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion?
I motion that we table M2024-07, Z2024-55, and S2024-56 to the February 4th board meeting, commission board meeting.
Second.
I have a motion, do I have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of tabling M 2024-07, Z 2024-55, and S 2024-56 until the February 4th, 2025 meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Madam Chair, recommendation comes to the commissioners to retable M 2024-07, Z 2024-55, and S 2024-56.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, in alignment with our legal, certainly do we have a motion to table this item, and I can certainly read it out. M 2024-07 slash Z 2024-55 slash S 2024-56. Do we have a motion to table?
For purposes of discussion, I'm just going to make the motion to table M 2024-07, Z 2024-55, and S 2024-56.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Okay. We have
Second.
A second, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Vice Chairman, you have the floor.
Was the applicant notified that we would not be able to have this tonight?
So in our staff report, we did indicate that it is staff's recommendation to table to the February 4th meeting if you would like to act on the new information that was submitted. The staff does not have time to fully review and provide feedback. The community has not been given proper notice that there has been a change in the application packet. So if it is your inclination to act on the new information, that would be my recommendation, is that you table. And I'll invite County Attorney to jump in to clarify anything where she may feel differently. But if it is the intent to act on the information as presented originally, that we had the hearing on December 3rd, I don't know if we could, if in your opinion, we could move forward with the hearing.
So let me offer this point of clarification. I have not obviously looked at what the new
They
information.
can't hear you,
Oh,
Audrey.
I'm sorry. I have not looked in depth at the new information. So I'm deferring to staff in terms of, does it significantly modify what we originally advertised it to be? If we do, then it is legal's position then that we have not properly noticed the community, because it was advertised in a manner that's now different than what we have before the board. I do believe that if the information is not significantly altered, then you can review it. However, I believe the inquiries would probably simply be limited to clarifying questions from staff, given where staff has indicated their comfortability with doing so. I would probably reiterate the position of it would be prudent to defer to the next meeting or a date that the board determines appropriate and advertise it consistent with where the characteristics, are, given the new information. Because we are required to provide notice to the public. And I think in addition to the fact that procedurally, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, we closed the public hearing and tabled it for a vote. So those things in combination, it feels more prudent to table. But of course, it's the board's determination whether they want to proceed tonight based on the previous information, or whether you want to consider the new information and table.
Well, we definitely want to reconsider the new information, because the new information has been modified in a very positive manner for this application. They have bent over backwards, and they have done things for that, like the impervious surface. They are no longer asking to increase the impervious surface. So this is in a positive manner. So the only thing that I would say is this unlawful for us to go forward? Because I believe this community's about waited long enough for this vote.
I would believe so, because I think it would be legally improper to proceed where the public has not been advertised. We do, per the law, have requirements to advertise, and we have a time frame in which we have to do it. And if we've now, whether it's positive or not, changed the substance of what the public was notified of, to proceed without giving them that opportunity, I would not believe is prudent.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I saw Commissioner Raxton first, and then I'll get to you, Commissioner Kendall Jones.
All right, thank you. I guess my question at this point is, do we anticipate any additional changes coming forth from the applicant between now and if we decide to change and to defer this to the February meeting? Is there anything that's still outstanding, and maybe this is more for Allison and the staff, is there anything else that we should expect that is still outstanding?
So again, generally speaking, the information that was submitted on December 30th was mostly not information that was requested by staff. We have done a cursory level review of what's different between the two, but we have not had time to send the application out for review through the various reviewing departments, including the Water and Sewer Authority, the DOT, things like that. We have not had time to put it back in front of the regional reviewing agencies. There is a change in the site plan going from 1.3 million square feet to 1.7 million square feet. There is a change in the site plan about the routing of the utility station, the utility line. There is a change in the site plan about the location of the project entrance. So there are questions that I cannot answer for you tonight in terms of whether or not what they've submitted to you as a part of the updated information is something that there would be any feedback on from the various reviewing departments.
Okay. But
So again, and I don't know if I specifically answered your question, but again, much of what was submitted was not anything that the staff requested to begin with.
Okay.
So whether they will continue to submit, I can't say one way or the other.
Yeah, because I'm trying to avoid going through this again next month, that something else is submitted, and then we have to, review it or say we cannot move forward because we didn't advertise, et cetera.
So again, I do feel like what was submitted was in response to the comments at the public hearing, but it wasn't anything that was specifically requested by staff. There was discussion about the memo about the industrial hygiene, but again, that was not conditioned as anything that had to be submitted. So I do believe they have continued to try to be responsive to comments that have been made. But again, there's some nuance about whether they actually decreased their impervious surface, right, or whether they just kind of switched things around on the site plan and called things differently to allow them to say that they may be under. So those are the kinds of nuances I cannot provide you adequate feedback on tonight if it is the intention of this board to consider the revised information that was submitted.
All right, I understand. Thank you. All right, Madam Chair, I yield back the floor to
Okay,
you.
thank you. Commissioner Kenna Jones, you have the floor.
I do feel like I recall at the prior meeting specific questions and requests for Trammell Crow to provide additional information to specifically address concerns that, to your point, may not have been raised by staff, but certainly were raised by the people sitting up here. And so I'm having a slightly bit of a difficult time reconciling that this feels almost punitive, that they've attempted to comply with what was requested, but now are not able to go forward. So when they submitted the new information, were they notified at that time that there was now going to have to be a public hearing to address the new information that was being provided?
So Mr. Bailey and I did communicate, and I did inform him that my recommendation was going to be to table based on the new information. It is my opinion that I think the board, if they want to move forward on what was submitted originally, I feel like that if the county attorney is comfortable with that, I don't necessarily have a problem with moving forward with that. Again, for the sake of transparency, the best I can say to y'all is I didn't get it until December 30th. We had to publish December 31st. So if there's any hesitation I have, it's to err on the side of transparency, because I cannot fully express to you everything that was potentially changed. So I don't feel that I can stand in front of you and give you honest feedback about what you would be voting on if you vote on the new information submitted on December 30th. So I understand your perspective about being punitive. It is certainly not our intention to be punitive. It is our intention to be transparent, knowing that we did receive a fair amount of information that, again, we're prepared to show you the differences if you would like to see that, if the county attorney is comfortable with us doing that.
Are there any portions, because I guess this is 3 separate applications. Are there any portions of the applications that don't have substantive changes that votes can be moved forward on, and then only table a specific portion of this? Or is it modifications to everything?
It would not be my recommendation to act on any of it if it's your intention to review new information submitted, I think, unless county attorney feels differently. But I would not change the future land use map unless you're prepared to change the zoning. And if you don't change the zoning, then the special use permits wouldn't necessarily follow, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
As well. So if you're considering new information in a limited capacity, right? It's not a substantial departure from what the public was made aware of. Also understand you're limited in terms of who you can ask and what you can ask. What you don't want to do is invite the applicant up to have another bite at the apple of having a conversation with the board where the public hasn't been noticed. And so there are a lot of nuances if you move forward with the new information that could create new issues if you're not careful. So I think that's probably where Ms. Duncan is saying, you know, there are some challenges with going forward. But again, if it is, or it becomes apparent that it is a significant departure, then again, then you have the issue with notice, because it was not advertised as a public hearing. And what further buttresses that is specifically the public hearing was concluded
And so,
at the last meeting.
am I misunderstanding then that y'all are not allowed to even show us the comparison between the different information, and then we can make a decision about whether or not this needs to be advertised as an additional public hearing? Or are you saying if we are going to make that decision, then that's what we're stuck with?
I think you can do that, but then I think it grays or muddies the record,
Okay.
right? Because if you subsequently decide, hey, we're a step too far, the information's substantive, then now how can you delineate going forward whether or not you considered the information, you know, as it was presented at the new public hearing, or did you do it in some other form or fashion? Again, it's the decision of the board, but just making you aware of those challenges,
I
should you
appreciate
proceed.
the explanation from staff and county attorney, and I yield back.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor to table. Board, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to table until our next meeting, which is February the 4th. Okay? All right. I'm so sorry.
Madam Chair, can I just
Yes,
make-
you may add.
I do think that we owe the citizens and Trammell Crow an apology. Again, I don't think that this was any malicious intent or a mishap or a misstep on the part of staff. Certainly none of us anticipated that this would be the outcome, but this is part of the reason why I was against deferring in the first place, because we open up for the opportunity to have stuff like this happen, things get missed or delayed in presentation, and now these people have come now for a third time for a meeting that's not happening. So I just want to personally apologize to everybody here, Trammell Crow and the residents included. And I yield back, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Vice Chair, you have the floor.
I too submit the apologies, because we've all dealt with this long enough. I've dealt with this long enough. I'm tired of the phone calls. I'm tired of everything else. I'm ready to get this either going forward or denied, whichever way it goes, it goes. But I'm ready for this to come to, and I know the landowners are, I know Trammell Crow are, I know that whole community is ready to move forward one way or another. And so whatever we got to do to make sure this is right the next time around, I'm going to be adamant that this is done in February. Now yield back, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chairman Alcaraz. And certainly I echo the sentiments of the board and extend my apologies for you having to come. And certainly we just want to make sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed. And I lean on the knowledge of my legal team. And unfortunately, that's the purpose of having a legal here, to make sure they guide us in the right direction. So again, please accept my apology. I yield the floor back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We'll allow a couple of minutes here if folks want to leave.
Yeah, I got you. Oh, yeah, yeah.
What's that?
I want to tell y'all this one more time. I got 15 phone calls from citizens. We already talked. Come here, speak. You know, we get it all. And you do it. School board.
If y'all would exit please, so we can continue with our meeting. Have your conversations outside. Go feed some people over here.
They changed the building structure.
I'm sure this won't be the last time I get
If they hadn't just did the EPA and that other stuff, we couldn't deny it. Because they said, one of the things she would have presented, but now she got to present some more square footage. She got to split one other building. And then the people gonna say, we only saw two buildings in the yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right. Mr. Cronin, would you introduce our next item, please?
Yes, sir. Our next item is a rezoning. It's a PUD amendment. This PUD was previously approved, so we're treating this as a pure PUD amendment. They're proposing 107 residential units, 62 townhomes, 45 single-family detached homes. This is in Commission District Number 2. The lot size is 12.89 acres. It's a part of the overall Trails PUD. The site's currently vacant, made up of 2 parcels, and Foxfield Parkway, which you might know as a spine road, is currently underway, construction-wise. The applicant's proposing a change in the sub-area classification from office, and perimeter multifamily to perimeter residential as a sub-area. The applicant's proposing a total of 107 residences, and this is a picture from the overall development standards and plan of what could have come by right under the currently approved sub-area plan. So we have multifamily and office space that could be developed. Taking a look at the relevant code sections, prior zoning actions. In 2022, this was approved as a part of the overall Trails PUD. And then in 2022, they also received a variance to reduce the PUD incompatible buffer from 100 feet to 30 feet. And so the proposed amendment provides a site plan that has single-family detached, abutting single-family detached that's existing. And so we believe that it's more compatible with the future land use, suburban living future land use designation. And it also has 2 points of access off of Foxfield Parkway. We've taken a look at the zoning criteria, and this is a picture of the overall PUD. And this is a picture of it as it's currently developed. It's currently vacant, abutting single family. From the site plan, you can see 62 townhomes and 170 units in total, with the 30-foot undisturbed buffer proposed. With the applicant, we put together a PUD sub-area standard. So there's a regulating document in the staff report that regulates the site plan and the minimum standards therein. And these are elevations of the proposed townhomes as well as a single family. and it's in the Community Village Center and the Suburban Living Future Land Use and the Fairburn Lee Road Corridor character area. Staff's recommending approval based upon the findings that the granting of the PUD amendment will not modify the comprehensive plan or the intent, purpose, spirit of the UDC, and the granting of the proposed PUD amendment will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, and the proposed PUD amendment provides overall development standards that are compatible with the overall development. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person with a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you would state your name and address for the record, and then you've got 2 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Carrie Smith. I'm here on behalf of DRB Group Georgia LLC. Our address is 55 Ivan Allen Jr. Boulevard, Suite 400, Atlanta, Georgia 30318. I want to thank you all for your consideration of our proposal this evening. As Austin went through, we are proposing to amend the PUD sub-area to a residential use comprised of both single-family detached homes as well as attached townhomes. The rationale behind the change to this to the PUD classification is largely driven by the softening in the office market that we've seen over the last several years, particularly since the COVID pandemic. New office buildings built since 2022 are averaging about 50% vacancy currently, and it's become a less and less feasible use throughout the city. Harry Kitchen, who is largely very in support of our proposal, in partnership with DRB, determined that the true highest and best use for this area is currently residential. We believe it also provides an excellent transition from the adjacent low-density residential to our northwest, transitioning into the higher intensity uses within the PUD as planned. Our proposal not only fits the criteria of the future land use map and the existing character areas it sits within, but providing this transitional use increases the overall appeal of the community and connectivity of the Trails PUD to the larger community. And I will reserve the rest of my time for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. If you would state your name and address for the record, and then 2 minutes.
Yeah, Carl Peterson, 2634 James Road, Douglasville, Georgia. I guess I should say, hey, my name is Carl, and I'm here representing the Peterson family. Our family owns 20 acres of very nearby property, and 13 of which are immediately adjoining this. We represent half of the land barrier of this proposed project. We have long understood the value of this track and the many other tracks off of Highway 92, and their value both to the county and the city, and we have long determined that we don't wish to fight change, we just wish to fight for good change. And that's why over the last 18 years, we have supported everything from the 2007 land use study, the TAD, the original trails development, and as I'll get to in a moment, this. I say all this to illustrate that we both invested in our county and we believe that the future is good. So on the topic of the proposed variance, while we slightly preferred the original plan for a variety of site factors, we acknowledge that the market is facing a great deal of uncertainty, and that forces challenges on the business plan. So combined with the landscaping and mechanical barrier specified in the application, we are for it. And before I stand aside, I would like to take this moment and bring attention to the zoning department. In an effort to fully understand this, Allison, Austin, and Duncan all worked with us to help us understand what's going on. They've been nothing less than excellent. We want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have a good staff. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? We also have 2 minutes per person, 15 minutes allocated time. If you would approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then you've got 2 minutes.
Okay, my name is Wayne Bennett. I live at 3123 Freedom Court, Douglasville. I live in this area. I believe this is in Commissioner Kenner Jones' district. Our district has been ravaged with growth over the last 2 or 3 years. There are multiple things still under construction. We do not need additional growth at this time. We need, is the moratorium no longer in place that was put in place?
It is, but this application was in before the
Before then,
moratorium.
I got you. Okay, thank you. But I am not in favor of this at this time. We need to absorb what has recently been completed and what is currently underway before we proceed with more new construction. Madam Chair, after Commissioner Kenner Jones' meeting in October, I spoke with you about the commissioners considering an impact fee for the developers and all. And I don't know if you all have discussed that at all. We need an impact fee. It is not fair for the current constituents, the current taxpayers in this county, to have to go out and pay to repair the roads that are carrying the heavy machinery, the building materials that are being trucked in for all these developments and everything. And you know what the condition of our roads is. You know very well. You wouldn't have come out with the T-Splosh that failed in November. So we need to look at other things because it is not right for the current residents and citizen taxpayers to have to pay to repair the damage that is being caused by these vehicles. And we do not need this growth at this point. That's all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Okay. My name is Vicki Rowell. I live at 2654 James Road. My land will be backed up to this new thing. And there possibly might be 14 houses on I've just owned less than 2 acres. From the plat that I saw, there's going to be 14 houses just on my land, not counting the 5 or 6 townhomes that's going to be sitting in front of that one. Fairburn Road cannot handle the traffic. I agree with this gentleman here. The Fairburn Road cannot handle the traffic. Lee Road cannot handle the traffic. And the schools and the hospitals. I think we need to slow down on the building of houses. They're fixing to open Carlton up on the Fairburn Road. This is a massive, massive construction of apartments and townhomes. I don't know where all these cars and where all these children are going to be going to school because our schools are not catching up with the growth. And taxpayers cannot pay more on taxes and stuff. We've already been taxed out. It's just too much growth in our area, and it's not for the good. There's just too many people coming in and too much traffic, not enough of the, like I said, the schools and even the hospitals. The hospital has not grown with the county. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
April Streetman, 8739 Club Drive, Douglasville, Georgia. I would like to just back up what these 2 people have said. I do appreciate that we have a moratorium now. I am a realtor. I love to see growth, but I want it to be a good growth in our county. Our schools absolutely cannot handle all of these townhomes and these apartments that are going in right now. They couldn't do it, but we should have had a moratorium a year before you actually put one on. But I do appreciate that. I am against I'd like to see positive growth instead of the impact that the townhomes and the apartments are taking on in our county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
I have questions of staff. Okay, so what we're doing is making some changes, correct? From
Yes.
what was previously Could you show what was previously, was gonna go in that area?
Yes, sir. So previously, they had the option to do either office or multifamily. So this would be a reduction in the intensity of scale and also the density.
So we're going from this to townhomes in, single-family homes?
Yes, sir.
So based on this structure that we're seeing here, we're actually downsizing, but we're still meeting part of the comprehension plan for that area, correct?
Yes, sir. And it abuts the single-family residential. The single-family abuts the single-family. It provides more of a transition from the intensity of the uses within the overall PUD, with the single-family as the final entryway into the existing single-family.
So basically, what they're doing now is changing from having more of a business and apartments above the residents or the businesses to now making it more single-family with condos in that area.
Yes, sir.
So the traffic will actually go down similarly. I don't know if we have DOT to kind of talk about that based on the structure, but if DOT is ready, after I finish, to see what DOT would say about this as well, because I know that it's going to probably impact, because I know they did a traffic study before with all of that being there. Now it's not going to be as much. So I see he's coming forward, so I'm going to go ahead and ask that question to DOT while he's walking up.
Good evening, board. To your question about traffic, the use is being repurposed from office use to single family or the townhomes that you've seen. So the intensity of the traffic is also being decreased from what it was originally proposed. So considering that, we don't see any substantial effects to what's already in place or the road that we've already designed and constructed, for example, Spine Road. So for those reasons, we're comfortable with this change.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. I'd like to talk to the applicant. Now, you heard some of the concerns that the adjoining residents have.
Yes, sir.
With and I know that you have changed from what it was previously to what it is now. Could you kind of explain the cost of this? Will they be rentals or will they be single-family homes that people will own?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you. So the homes that we are proposing here would be 100% owner-occupied, market rate for sale homes. We're anticipating that the townhomes would begin to sell in the low 300 to mid 300 price range, with the single-family detached homes beginning in the low $400,000 range.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Staff or the applicant?
Just for the sake of staff, just want to make clarity. I believe we've already hit this point. Just want to clarify, at this point, it's a reduction from their original footprint that they had. This is a reduction where it's going to take up less space and less density, correct?
Yes, sir. This is a decrease in the density.
All right, that's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Staff, traffic.
Yes, sir.
How many entrance or exits will there be?
So it looks like there's just one entrance to the roundabout that you see on the screen. This specific use, the houses will basically have access to Spine Road through the roundabout. And then they'll use Spine Road to get onto Fairburn. Down the road, eventually we'll have Lee Road Extension project, which will further connect to this roundabout. So at that time, in the future, they'll have two access points outside of the PUD.
Yeah, I was wondering about the Lee Road because it's right there in that area. So, okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Madam Chairman, hearing no questions from the board, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Kenneth Jones, you have the floor.
This question is for staff. So currently, the applicant already owns this property and is approved, so they could come tomorrow with no action by the Board of Commissioners and build the example that you showed us first.
Yes, the the office space has a limit of up to 6 stories, and then the multifamily has a certain density that's higher than this density here.
And so nothing that they are proposing is at the 6-story heights. What is the tallest point of the townhomes?
So the townhomes can go up to 3 stories, I believe.
What is the minimum square footage of the townhomes and the single-family homes?
Okay, so I'll let the...
Sorry, dear.
No, you're fine. I'll let the developers...
Sorry about that. So the townhomes are going to be 2-story townhomes, and I believe the ridge height of the townhomes is just at 30 feet at the top of the eave of the roof, but the floor to floor is about 24 feet. And sorry, what was the second part of your question?
The minimum square footage of
The townhomes will be about 1,900 square feet.
And the single-family homes?
They will be starting at about 2,100 square feet.
And how many units were you all proposing in the original plan for the apartments?
Yep. Yeah, do you want to clarify?
Just to clarify, they were not the original apartment builders, right? So the original master developer that came in provided an option for that to be office, but the questions about the viability of the office market long-term caused us to write into the original PUD, if it doesn't look like office is viable, it could become apartments. I believe the apartments contemplate a density of somewhere upwards of 8 or 10 units per acre overall, so this is about a 13-acre site, if that gives you any kind of sense of what they could potentially do. There are currently an apartment complex coming out of the ground, and Austin can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's about 300 units, as well as this group, I believe, is proposing to develop the townhome community that is also a part of that. But they were not the original apartment.
So even with the townhomes and the single-family homes, this is like a third of the size of what they could do right now without any further action from us.
So that requires math in my head, so I'm not going to commit to it being a third, but I would say it's far less intense and it is a less density than what could come in by right under its current zoning. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kenner Jones. Any other questions, Board? Commissioner Raxton, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. So this is for the developer, and again, very much, hearing about the single-family homes, and just curious as far as the market, because we talked about the market for commercial.
Sure.
And do you feel pretty confident that the market for single-family housing as well as town housing, we have a pretty good demand and that we could have residents in there pretty quickly?
We do. We've studied the market exhaustively and think there's a really strong opportunity to deliver high-quality homes at an attainable price point to sort of deliver to that missing middle of housing product that a normal family can afford, in a great location. And depth of market is there. I think that given the pace at which existing inventory that is selling in the market is selling at, for example, Timber Ridge by Lennar is selling 10 homes a month. It seems that there's substantial pent-up demand for high-quality new housing inventory in the market.
Okay, well, that's great. And then my next question is in regards to the single-family homes. Are they going to have 1-car or 2-car garages?
2-car garages.
2-car garages, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And then any type of common area that's being proposed?
There will be a sort of an entry lawn near where the mail kiosk is going to be located. There will also be a dog park provided as an amenity to the residents, a fire pit and seating area, as well as sidewalk and walking connectivity that connects both to the larger PUD and within the interior of our parcel.
Okay. All right, thank you. Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Raxton. Any other questions, Board? Vice Chairman Alcaraz, you have the floor.
Sorry you sat down. Can you come back up one more time, please? What are the lot sizes?
They are 40-foot wide lots by 100 feet deep. Yes, 40 by 100.
So, in other words, they're going, if if I'm looking at these numbers correctly, they're going to be pretty tightly stacked in there, correct?
They're going to be, kind of cottage style, 30-foot wide plans. So yeah, they'll be with 5-foot setbacks sides.
So 5-foot setbacks on the sides.
Correct.
So the houses are basically only going to be 10 foot apart.
House to house, yes, sir. And it's plan specific, so our largest plan is 30 feet. There are some that are slightly smaller, so.
My only concern is the reason I'm going with this is when those houses catch fire, by the time our fire department gets there, we're probably going to have another house on fire beside it because 10 feet is very close, especially in extreme heat.
I will just say that, so DRB's standard spec that we deliver in 100% of the homes that we build is 2-hour fire-rated walls, and that's something that is a non-negotiable. So it goes into every single house that we build in an effort to maintain as much safety and even in higher density settings as possible.
Okay. And DOT, just real quick, I'm sorry. Am I looking at this wrong, but is there not 2 entrances to this? I'm looking at a roundabout and I'm looking to the far right end.
Yeah, it does seem like there's another one shown to the north of the face, north of the page. That one is not currently permitted. It's not a curb cut as of right now. We could look at it once it comes to the DRC. The initial plan was to have this property access through the roundabout. So that is certainly that something I just saw now. I did not catch it earlier.
No, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's all.
Yep.
And this is just going to be just a personal comment in regards to this area that's developing over there. I would love to see us get away from stacked in stuff like this and us start looking more toward other areas where development, you have retail underneath and you got nice developments up top. We are just packing in our roads. I've sat on Fairburn Road for quite some time at red lights trying to just get to I-20, and it is extremely frustrating, so I understand what some of our citizens are saying. But I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Vice Chairman Alcaraz. Any other comments? Commissioner Mitchell, you have the floor.
For the applicant, what is the price point for, I think you said 300,000 starting point for the townhomes?
It's about 330.
Okay,
will be
that's
the
the
average
townhomes.
sales price for
Right,
the
right.
townhomes.
And what
yes.
about the single family?
400 to 430.
Oh, got you. Okay, got you. Okay, interesting. And I guess we are safe to say, and I think I'm good with you though. We're safe to say, Allison. Oh, I'm sorry. That this is really considered a down zoning from commercial to this residential makeup.
Yes, sir. It reduces the density. It's more compatible with the comprehensive plan, and it offers a diversity of housing types, which is something that on our Highway 92 corridor study that's currently underway, we have multiple concepts that do try to propose multiple housing types for a diversity of housing options.
Right. And I keep hearing, and I maybe either I misheard or somebody may have misspoke. There's no apartments that's a part of this. This is not apartment living or.
Yes, sir. So the overall development standards, they do not permit apartments.
Right. But I think I've heard a couple of times that someone making the statement that something about apartments, but these are townhomes and single family residence.
Yes, sir. The approved sub-area as it is now provided for multifamily or office. So the proposed change would only allow for townhomes and single family.
Right. And last but not least, in the event that, let's say this doesn't pass and they go back to just square from what they actually presented on the very beginning, and that would be commercial and would not have to come back before this board to do anything other than build what they had initially set forth to build in the beginning.
So the office and the multifamily could come as it's presently authorized, just through the regular development review committee process.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. And I yield back.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. I have a question for the developer. If you could you, I'm just kind of thinking about what Commissioner Alcaraz mentioned a few minutes ago regarding how close the homes are to one another. Could you just speak to the acoustical materials that you use to buffer the sounds? Do you all have something late and great? Because it's uncomfortable when your neighbor can hear everything you say. Can you talk to share your thoughts with me?
In terms of exterior building
Yeah,
materials?
just something to
and-
keep the noise, from one house to another. So
Sure.
you- yeah.
Yep, so our exterior building materials incorporate at minimum hardy plank or cementous siding, in addition to masonry and accents that might include shingle, stone, probably not stucco, but I think that's allowed under the ODS. And in terms of interior proofing, we do, in addition to the 2-hour rated firewalls, there is sound proofing. I don't know the exact specifications. I'm happy to provide additional detail from my construction team, but I know that it's something that we offer as a standard spec in our vertical construction. So
Has it been tested?
it has, yes.
Okay. And you will provide that information to
Absolutely.
Allison for me. I always ask the difficult questions.
Of course,
Everybody says,
it can get
and I just-
technical. I'm good with that.
No problem. And if I could have our managing director, Rana, just come up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm. You mentioned the Spine Road that's along this project, or should I say. Will there be a traffic light available to allow our citizens to access, I believe, the Fairburn 92 Road? Is there a traffic light plan for this area?
Yes, Madam Chair. It is certainly planned and warranted. The only issue that it's, and the reason that it's not there right now is because these developments are underway. As soon as the construction that you see that's happening today, plus this is completed, all of these numbers to begin with justify the traffic signal at the intersection. So as soon as these developments start generating actual traffic numbers, we will get in touch with state and get it permitted and eventually installed.
So can you just identify where this traffic signal is playing? Is it 92 and what is the intersecting road?
So this will be for Spine Road at 92.
The Spine Road.
At Fairburn, yes.
Okay. All right, you answered my question. Thank you. I yield back the floor to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do I have a motion on Z 2024-68?
This is Brandon Penman. I make a motion to approve application Z 2024-68, a request for an amendment to the PUD.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Or Curry, second.
Motion and a second, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving Z 2024-68, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Z 2024-68 comes to the Commissioners with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a motion to approve Z 2025-01 and, I'm sorry, Z 2024-68.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay, we have a 5-0 unanimous vote and the motion carries. Thank you. I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Good luck to you. Mr. Cronin, our next item, please.
Yes, sir. Our next item is a rezoning and a special use permit. This is a rezoning from general commercial to heavy commercial and a special use permit for a pawn shop in the highway corridor overlay. It's at 10150 Veterans Memorial Highway, in a suite within. The lot size is 0.82 acres. This is in Commission District Number 2. The existing structure on the lot is 7,752 square feet, and it's divided into 6 suites. The existing uses on the site per occupational tax records include a wireless carrier, barbershop, title pond, and a supermarket. We've taken a look at the relevant code sections, and the prior zoning action in 1985 was a rezoning from commercial and residential to now general commercial for a shopping center. And the proposed rezoning would change the permitted uses allowed on the property to more intensive uses, but otherwise shares similar permitted uses as the general commercial zoning. And without redevelopment, the permitted uses would be constrained by the existing conditions on the site, which you'll see in just a second, most notably the lot size and the drive aisle circulation. The proposed rezoning will not render any already permitted occupational tax certifications out of conformance. and the proposed special use will not require additional infrastructure or utility requirements, and it's proposed to be located entirely within a suite. Taking a look at the zoning criteria and the special use criteria, and the site itself, it's bordered by heavy commercial to the north, general commercial to the south, and the lot itself is constrained by its current size and parking lot and current structure on the property. It's in the community village center future land use in the traditional neighborhood character area, and staff's recommending approval of the rezoning based upon the findings that the granting of the proposed rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, spirit of the UDC or the comprehensive plan, and it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and the granting of the proposed rezoning will not fundamentally change the character of the crossroads, a Veterans Memorial Highway and Thornton Road, and wouldn't render any existing businesses as non-conforming. And that concludes my presentation. Oh, sorry. And we also have the special use permit, and staff is recommending approval based upon the fact that it will not modify the comprehensive plan, the intent, purpose, spirit of the UDC, and it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And the proposed use does not propose modifications to the site and would not require additional measures to mitigate light, noise, glare, or odor. The current uses on the site will not be disrupted as a result of the proposed special use. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Croner. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You two would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you would state your name and address for the record, and then 2 minutes.
Okay. My name is Elizabeth Blackman. I live at 8532 Westchester Drive, Douglasville, Georgia. I have a pawn shop in Austell that I've had for 17 years. I'm just simply trying to move my location 0.3 miles from where I'm at now. Like I said, I've been in Douglas County 17 years, same pawn shop. I'm just simply trying to move locations.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you won't go too far, we'll probably have some questions.
Okay, I'll just hang out right here.
You state your name and address for the record, and then 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Robert Blackman. I live at 3426 Post Road, and I'm in favor of moving the pawn shop. I know that pawn shops get a bad rap whenever you watch movies, TV shows. We run a really stand-up business. We're really proud of what we do. We like to take care of people. And like she said, we've been in business for 17 years. So I was a kid, helping my dad whenever we got started. So I'm definitely in favor of it. It would be nice to move and be able to stay close to our current location, and be able to be actually in Douglas County rather than annexed into Austell. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the presentations. Do you have any questions of the applicant or staff?
I got a question for staff real quick. Hopefully this will be a clarity point for everybody. Could you just describe to us why, for something like a pawn shop, we need the zoning change from general commercial to heavy commercial?
Yes, sir. So the pawn shop isn't allowed in the general commercial designation, and then the special use permit is because the pawn shops in the highway corridor overlay, which this is a part of, they're only allowed with a special use permit.
Bingo. Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Rob Thomas, can you go back to the map
Yes, sir.
and with the zonings of the adjacent properties? Okay, so currently, we got CGH, CGC and CH. So we got heavy commercial on both sides of this property already. Okay, so it's not a big deal as far as compatibility. Okay, what about behind it? Any housing behind it?
So this particular section of Thornton Road and Veterans Memorial, it's really commercialized. It's a very heavy commercial area, general commercial and heavy commercial. The residential is further.
Okay,
further.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll throw it to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. Okay. Commissioner Kenna Jones, you have the floor.
This question is for staff. With the modification to heavy commercial, is that going to be, is the pawn shop going to be the only business in that plaza, or is this going to open us up to having other heavy commercial uses coming there?
So it would change it for the entire site, which would change the permitted uses for the rest of the suites as well.
So if the permitted uses for the rest of the suites is increased to heavy commercial, is that going to have an impact on our traffic on Thornton Road, because it's already pretty tight?
So I'd have to defer to DOT. It would depend on the permitted uses within. The lot itself is constrained by the structure and how it's divided up. So the tenants would have to be a smaller scale in order to fit in there.
Do we know how many tenants are already in this building?
So we have about 4 active. I believe there was the wireless carrier, the Title Pond, supermarket, and a barber shop.
And so I guess, for my own ignorance, what's the difference in the zoning requirements where a title pond didn't need the same special rezoning, but the pawn shop actually does?
They're just treated a little differently in our use chart in Article 2. So they are permitted by right in the general commercial. The pawn shops themselves, they have additional requirements under the Code of Ordinances for public hearing for pawnbrokers license. So I believe it's just treated with more scrutiny for the pawn shops proper instead of the title pawn.
And is there any concern, his comment actually sparked my curiosity in terms of the existing location or any other pawn shops in the county, are there higher incidences of crime, break-ins, loitering, anything like that residents should be concerned about?
So I wouldn't have those statistics, unfortunately, but from the impacts provided from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, there wasn't any indication that this would bring in more crime.
And then this question is for the applicant. Is there a reason why you want it to move if it's such a short distance? Is there something happening with the previous location, or?
It's actually still a better location, because where I'm at now, I'm in a curve, and I'm in the city of Austell. And being in Douglas County would be better for me to be in Douglas County. The licensing is much higher in the city of Austell. The way that I'm the only pawn shop that is in the city of Austell. And the rules there are a little weird. They're like really outdated. You know what I mean? Like for instance, I'm required to take a pawn slip to the city of Austell on each of my pawns every day. Well, so Douglas County didn't like that, and I am in your county. I've been here 17 years. So the Douglas County Police Department didn't like that, because it's harder for them to actually be able to look at what I take with the way that the city reports these things. So Phil Miller had me start reporting to Leads Online for Douglas County Police Department, which I did years ago for them, so that I was reporting 2 different places, but yet only having 1 business license. But it would just make better sense, because it is a small town, and the way that they do things never changes. It's always the same. Now, maybe someday they'll go back and they'll start rewriting things, but Douglas County just does things a better way. And that's just the truth. So.
Thank you. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Braxton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is probably for staff, and it's based on the current with the applicant. Do we know of any issues, any past issues with code enforcement, any issues with any type of public safety at the current location that you could share with us?
So that wasn't a part of the impact statements. Unfortunately, we don't have that information.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then this is probably for the applicant. So just to clarify your statement on the need or the request to change location, it seems like it's more of a programmatic, operational type of opportunity versus something as far as a larger space or growing the business.
Yeah,
And
no.
if that's the case or not.
No, it has nothing to do with the size of the property.
Mm-hmm.
the rent will be cheaper for me there. The space will also be smaller. But as far as ever having any problems is, criminal, anything, I have not. I have been very blessed in this business, this line of business. I mean, for us to be there that long, you can't be running crap and staying in business that long, doing the type of business that we do. We're very, very, if it ain't in the rules, we're not doing it. I mean, that's just the way it is, because one screw up can cost me my whole livelihood. I'm not willing to take one chance. You know, that's just the way that we are. My whole family, he owns Dixie Pond in Mapleton. So we just operate in a way that we're proud of, you know. But the reason I'm leaving that building is, like I said, this was an opportunity that came up that it's just really too good to pass this up. And I also now have a new landlord that is one of the most greedy people that you'll ever meet in your life. My rent more than doubled once my lease was over. And she made the comment that I can't just go anywhere. She can charge me anything she wants. And that is incorrect. So.
All right, thank you for that.
I mean, that's the truth. That's the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
And we appreciate the truth. We love the truth. Thank you.
I mean, my rent was $1,800 and she moved it to $3,000, and this time it was $3,500. And if I stay, it's going to be $4,000. I can't keep you doing $500 a year. I can't do it.
I understand. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Raxton. Any other comments, board, remarks? I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. We have two items to take up here. We'll take up the zoning request, and then once that's concluded, we'll take up the special use permit. Do I have a motion on Z 2025-01?
Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. I'd like to make a motion to approve Z 2025-01, a request to rezone from general commercial to heavy commercial.
Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving Z 2025-01, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chair, Z 2025-01 comes to the board with unanimous recommendation for approval.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve Z 2025-01 and S 2025-02.
Okay, I believe we're going to separate them, Commissioner.
Okay.
So that's no problem. That's good. You did well.
Madam Chair, I move to approve agenda item Z 2025-01.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion?
I just have a very brief comment.
Okay, Commissioner, you have the floor.
I know pawn shops get a bad rap. I applaud you all. You're not trying to move into a residential area or a neighborhood. But I just want to say, I lived in a pawn shop in undergrad because I didn't have a lot of money. And so being able to go and, you know, get your necessities in a place where it's priced affordably, there is a time and a place and a space for that in our community as well. And so I just hope that you didn't take our questions in any kind of way, but I do appreciate that it is a service and it's a needed service, and I appreciate you for running a 17-year upstanding business.
Thank you.
Any other comments, board? We have a motion and a second on the floor. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries, and no opposition. And Chairman Simmons, I yield the floor back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, Planning and Zoning Board, I need a motion on S 2025-02, the special use permit.
Mr. Brandon Penham, I make a motion to approve S 2025-02, special use permit.
Ord Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving S 2025-02, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's also unanimous. Madam Chair, S 2025-02 comes to you with unanimous recommendation for approval of the special use permit.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve S 2025-02 for the special use permit.
Do we have a second? Okay. We have one motion in 2 seconds. That's great. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Please indicate by raising your right hand if you approve. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote and the motion carries. And I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Best of luck to you and welcome to Douglas County.
I appreciate that. Been here all my life. Got to bring my business home.
Bring your business there.
Bring my business home.
Okay, Mr. Cronin, next agenda item, please.
Yes, sir. The next agenda item is a special use permit for a used car sales service with a service facility at 61 Thornton Road. The lot size is 1 acre, and this is in Commission District Number 2. The property has a 7,000 square foot structure with 3 service bays currently sided. A 6-foot chain link fence separates the parking lot from the vehicle storage area, and then from available occupational tax records, the last use on this property, which was used car dealer, expired December 31st, 2023. So it's been that 6-month period, which necessitates coming in for the special use permit. No modifications to the site are proposed. We've taken a look at the relevant code sections. In 2001, this property was severed from the West Fork PUD plan unit development to be rezoned into heavy commercial for a car dealer. The cessation of the previous used car dealership use for a period of greater 6 months necessitates the special use. The trend of this section of Thornton Road has been to separate from the West Fork PUD in a piecemeal fashion and develop independently. No major changes to the existing character of this road section are being proposed, and no modifications to the site are being proposed. The proposed special use is a use that has historically occupied the site. Taking a look at the special use criteria, from the zoning map, it's heavy commercial currently. It abuts the city of Douglasville. From the site aerial, you can see how it's developed. And here's the survey. It's in the Commerce Center future land use in the West Fork character area, and staff's recommending approval with the condition of the special use based upon the findings that the proposed special use will not modify the comprehensive plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the UDC, and the granting of the special use will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and the proposed special use is a use that has historically occupied the site, and the site can be made to be brought into compliance with current codes through the Development Review Committee process. And so the condition staff's proposing is that the applicant must submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration of the relevant development standards of the Unified Development Code and any additional concerns as expressed in the department agency impact statements provided within this report or requirements determined by DRC at that time. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cronin. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone, including the applicant or their representative, that would like to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. You have 2 minutes per person and a total allocated time of 15 minutes. And before we start that, is the applicant present? If you would please approach the podium, I have a question. All right, if you'd state your name and address for the record, and then I have a question.
I'm Gene Hester, 200 A's Court, McDonough, Georgia.
Okay, you heard the presentation by Mr. Cronin with the condition. Are you in agreement with that condition?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or staff?
I think it's the public hearing portion, sir.
Have I got to close the public hearing?
Well, I think we have to have a public hearing.
I didn't have a public hearing? Okay, that's what I just opened the public, I just opened the public hearing and asked. Well, I'm not closing it. Okay, we're in the public hearing. I asked him if he agreed with the comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Oh, that's right. Okay. Been a long meeting. Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing. Now, at this point in time, Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
I have questions of the applicant. Could you? I'm somewhat familiar with Paris Cars, and I know you operate a little differently than some of the other used car lots.
Right.
Why Douglasville?
Well, you'd have to ask our owner that.
Oh.
He's expanding broadly through a lot of communities. He's trying to get in communities that he thinks he can service. And Douglasville was one of those communities, so.
How many operations do you have presently?
We have 8 current.
Currently have 7.
Seven.
Seven.
This would be our 8th location and would be our 6th service facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you'd approach the podium if you need to talk. Okay, any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? You have a question, Brandon?
No, I'm good.
Okay, no questions. At this point in time, I'll throw it over to Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have. Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board, do we have any questions for the applicant or the staff? No questions. I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a recommendation on motion on S 2025-05?
Mr. Brandon Penman, I make a motion to approve application S 2025-05, request for special use permit to allow the use of car sales with the condition as read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Rob Thomas, I second.
Motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving S 2025-05, special use permit, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chair, S 2025-05 comes to the board with a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Thank you so much. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would move to approve agenda item S 2025-05 with the conditions as read in by staff.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. We have a motion. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries with no opposition. I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Ms. Duncan, our next agenda item, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Z 2025-07. This is a request for rezoning from light industrial with conditions to light industrial. The proposed use is a warehouse which is currently established on the property. It is located at 2175 Industrial Boulevard, lot size 10.2 acres. This is in Commission District Number 1. This is a case that was before you previously, back in 2023. You did place conditions on the property at the time. And we're simply looking, the request from the applicant is to remove the conditions that were put in place in 2023. So again, the applicant owns both properties at 2175 Sweetwater Industrial and 2195 Sweetwater Industrial. In August 2023, the Board of Commissioners approved the request for rezoning at 2175 Sweetwater Industrial with conditions. It did not include the property at 2195 Sweetwater Industrial. Waste Belt Equipment Solutions was the applicant in 2023, and they continue to occupy and operate on the site. So what you have in front of you here are the 6 conditions that were approved in 2023. So the first condition deals with the connection to sanitary sewer. There were 3 conditions, numbers 2, 3, and 4, that were given to us from the Douglas County Department of Transportation in regard to improvements that were required, including the deceleration lane. And then items number 5 and 6 are kind of fairly standard language in terms of limiting the use on the property at the time, as well as having the applicant come present to DRC. So these 6 conditions are what were voted on in 2023. Now at that time, the owner had signed permission for the property to go forward with the zoning application, but the applicant was actually the tenant who is in the property. So the applicant is here today as the property owner requesting that all conditions of zoning are removed from the property. So we did look at the relevant code section. Again, under Article 12, Section 1208B, the Board of Commissioners may add or delete conditions of the application. And again, this was the case we alluded to previously in 2023 when this before you and the conditions were put in place. So again, we had been reviewing this property through the Development Review Committee. In October of 2024, the property at 2175 Sweetwater Industrial submitted plans for a land disturbance permit for the purposes of doing some grading on the property. So that is what triggered this coming back to you, because we told the applicant at that time as a part of the DRC review, hey, you got to come into compliance with the conditions that were put in place. Much of the discussion this evening, I think, is going to focus on the feedback that we received from the Douglas County DOT. So specifically, they have submitted some revisions to conditions 2, 3, and 4. Specifically, the existing driveway of 2175 shall be improved to include a minimum driveway width of 24 feet in addition to 24-inch curb and gutter to comply with the current UDC code. Also, to comply with the UDC code, there should be a deceleration lane constructed to 2175 driveway that complies with the current UDC code specifications. And then number 4, the property shall be improved within the right-of-way of Sweetwater Industrial Boulevard to meet all UDC code requirements, and that will be more defined through the DRC review. Otherwise, the staff is recommending that conditions 1, 5, and 6 stay the same, other than to update the date for today's hearing in regard to condition number 6. So we have analyzed the request. We do feel that the conditions should remain in place on the property with the recommendation to change the language as proposed by Douglas County DOT. Here is the current zoning map of the property showing the highlighted parcel, which is the light industrial with conditions. And here's an aerial image showing, again, how there's a certain amount of fluidity between both properties at 2175 and 2195 in terms of its use. The site plan submitted from the applicant. And so again, staff is recommending that the finding conditions on the property be revised so that the rezoning is consistent with the Douglas County Comprehensive Plan and the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Unified Development Code. We do not anticipate a negative impact from surrounding properties, and the granting of the rezoning will not significantly adversely impact the public health, safety, and welfare, and does represent best planning practices. Otherwise, we are recommending approval of the conditions as we had read in previously in our report. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duncan, at this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, including the applicant, please approach the podium and have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you'd state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi, I'm Pat Maloney, 1230 Rosecrans Avenue in Manhattan Beach, California. And I'm the applicant. I'm representing the property owner. And I think that was a fairly good synopsis that our tenant had come forward in August of 2023. They basically do waste equipment services. They take a finished truck and they basically add like a metal box on the back, like a trash truck, or those roll-off bins where you could, put the roll-off bin on and off the truck. They do that back part of the truck. They get the trucks that are finished and they add that onto it. So that's been construed as automotive use, and it's why we had to change from an LIR zoning, supposedly, to a light industrial zoning. And so when we were working with them to become a tenant, there was conversations with the city, and rather than arguing about should this be automotive or not, our understanding was we'd go through a process for a zoning. It wasn't going to be that big of a deal, and they would get it. So we authorized them to be the applicant. They came here, and then there was these conditions that were put on them. We found out after the fact. They did, in the hearing, object to conditions 2, 3, and 4, which is basically a decel lane, a sidewalk, and related right-of-way. So we then have come back in trying to do a couple of things to improve the property. One, some grading to kind of flatten some of the topography. And we are looking on the adjacent 5 acres. We bought the whole thing from Whirlwind Steel. They were an owner-occupier on 15 acres. And there's 5 acres extra. We're thinking about building a 100,000 square foot new building That's separate and distinct, and we understand if there's conditions related to a development, that's appropriate. But for these guys, they're going into an old metal building. It's a pretty similar use to what had happened previously. We just don't understand why conditions were put on to them.
Okay. So I would ask the question, did you agree with the conditions that were read in today?
No.
No, okay.
No, and in fact, the condition number 2 that it was read in today is an expansion of the conditions that were put on in August because this
Okay, you've had your 2
Well,
minutes.
sorry, I was just answering your question.
All right, we'll come back. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no.
Rene Franco, also 1230 Rosecrans Avenue, Manhattan Beach. I'm also with, just to kind of follow up what Pat has said, I was kind of the person that started the original process and was working with the tenant along with staff. Originally, I had come down to this office when we understood that we had to go through the process of this zoning change and met with, I believe his name is Jaquel, who had mentioned to me that staff had said that the use was going to be required to have a zoning change. We merely had to go through the process. And so we did that with the applicant. The applicant came in, did this, and this is kind of where we ended up at. So, and since then, I've attempted to try and have some meetings with traffic and zoning. We do have a traffic study. We do have a technical memorandum that has been presented, but have never had the opportunity to actually sit down with traffic. I've tried to have multiple meetings through Bruce Mercer with traffic to sit down and discuss these items, but because the board has already approved these, apparently there's nothing they can do. So again, we have all the information to be able to sit down with them and have a discussion about these requirements. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one moving, I'll open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. And seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. At this point in time, staff, you've heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Rob Thomas, I do have something for, he's coming up, he knows we need him. for this
DOT.
one. Yeah, we need him for this one. All right, so obviously they're trying to take the conditions off, the traffic improvements, the curb, gutter, sidewalk. Tell us how this is similar to other industrial buildings requirements?
Right. It is very standard to require these improvements for any similar developments. In UDC, it's very clearly defined. Residential subdivisions, commercial, industrial developments like these, they're required to install deceleration lane, and then sidewalk, right-of-way frontage improvements are all clearly defined in UDC, and that's how they're applied to not just this, but any other similar development that may come before us for review.
Okay. So I understand that. Now, obviously, the commissioners can make that change or make that exception. What have you seen in the past, exceptions like that? In industrial settings?
Quite honestly, ever since I've been with the county, I haven't seen one. And as you said, UDC gives us no power to remove this unless, the board decides otherwise. And in this case, the conditions were clearly defined, not just in UDC, but also in the board ordinance that was passed. So with that being said, in my time, I have not seen industrial development or a warehouse like this one is get a condition waived for deceleration lane. But I could be wrong, or there could be times before my time here where that may have been done.
So, the applicant kind of pointed out that it was a warehouse, been used as a warehouse all this time, and now we got a new tenant in, still using it pretty much same use,
Right.
a warehouse. Even though it might consider to be automotive, that's besides the point. It's still a warehouse. So why is it now, why wasn't it a condition before, I guess, my question?
So generally for established or existing businesses, we honor or we consider them grandfathered in unless they come before us for another review for any reason. In this case, I believe there was a special use permit or some sort of application applied for in 2013 that triggered impact statement, and DOT provided the comments that they did, and I believe that tenant was able to occupy and operate under that intended use that they applied for. With that use came these conditions and were approved by the board.
Okay. So they were grandfathered in. So if it wasn't any change, I mean, obviously it's a little bit different what they're doing now than what it was before. So if it wasn't any change, if the same type of use, then it would have been these requirements.
I'll just say, so if it's not a change that requires another review from subject matter experts or Department of Transportation, we wouldn't necessarily go out and find businesses who don't have a deceleration lane. We'll consider that grandfathered in. But if we hear from Development Services that there's an application for XYZ and a departmental review is triggered, then we try to bring them up to the standard or the UDC that's existing today. And Allison can provide further details.
Thank you, I understand.
So again, just because planning and zoning is the department that deals with use, I would say there was a change in use, right? So there was a large building in that location. It was zoned light industrial restricted. There was a change in use in that they came back and they wanted to change the zoning so that they could do the metal fabrication. That would not have been a use that would have been allowed under the LIR, which is why we had the zoning change. So to Suleiman's point, anytime, we have a project that comes through for a zoning change, the best practice is to capture that and bring the property up to whatever the most current code standard would be. And that is typical of, commercial, industrial, a lot of our non-residential uses, residential subdivisions that are expanding and things like
I
that.
understand. Can you go back to the picture to show that, show the subject property? Maybe the
Site
other
plan?
one, yeah. So it's on that curve. Is there any other improvements? Because I didn't see, when I went to go, I didn't see any improvements like across the street or, I'm just curious, is there any other improvement? If you're gonna put a sidewalk, right? I mean, you're just gonna be just that sidewalk and not attached to anything else?
So again, we would defer to the Douglas County DOT in terms of what improvements are required, to the overall transportation network. But it does kind of, with any of these improvements, we try to make them on a case-by-case, basis so that we're gradually upgrading our
So
infrastructure
eventually it will
over
connect.
time. So-
Eventually it will connect to what you're saying.
Yes, sir. So by the UDC, they are required to install a sidewalk. But in this case, they have got about 50 feet of roadway frontage. In this case, they've got a option B of paying into the fund for whatever that cost would be. It will be very minimal, given the minimal roadway frontage. But then there's another way to look at this too, and I remember back in 23 when this came in, I believe there were shared owners for 2 parcels, and we also looked at some options where they could do shared improvements for both parcels, where they did 1 decel sidewalk on the frontage and facilitated access to both parcels. And I understand that today we're talking about this corner parcel only, and if that's the case, sidewalk would be a requirement. If they don't wish to install it, there's very little to install to begin with. They have the option to pay into the fund for whatever that cost may be.
Well, how does that work? So they can pay into so those conditions can be satisfied with the payment?
Right. So if there's interim connectivity or critical connectivity where we feel like sidewalk really builds that building block, we prefer that a sidewalk is actually installed. In cases where there's no interim connectivity, we often consider requests where we have their engineers work up the cost of installing a sidewalk, let's say in this case 20 feet, 50 feet, and they can pay it into the fund, and then that sidewalk fund is for use at the discretion of the board elsewhere.
Okay, understand. Was the applicants aware of this? Do you know? About the fund, yeah. The applicant aware of the fund?
So again, it's in the code. It certainly is it's an option that I believe is available to any property in Douglas County. So that is certainly an option that's in the code.
So that's just a sidewalk. What about the decel lane and all that? Is that also something they can pay into, or they have to do that?
Unfortunately, deceleration lane, they have to do this for this development.
Okay.
Yep.
So the decel has to happen, but the sidewalks can be paid into the fund.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you. I yield.
Let me ask you a question while you're up there. If he indicated at that vacant lot next door that they own, they were talking about building a new building there, at that point in time, they're going to have to come in compliance with that lot, correct?
Right. And it would be very similar requirements for that lot at that time, too.
Right, okay. Because where they are now, I was out there, I looked at that yesterday, and that's a tough driveway right on that curve. And it's got to be 24 foot wide. How wide is it now?
The driveway, I think, I don't have the exact number, but I mean, given that they have 50-foot right-of-way frontage, they should be able to fit in what's required from UDC,
It's
which is
not 24 foot now.
I don't believe it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Madam Chairman, I'll throw it over to Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have of staff or the applicant.
Okay. Board of Commissioners, any questions for the staff of the applicant? Commissioner Mitchell, you have the floor.
And Alice, oh, there we go.
Yes, sir.
So, just so we're clear, these requirements that were voted on, I don't know exactly when, in '23, I guess it was.
August.
But the UDC, I mean, this gutters, curb, and sidewalks, and decel, and all that good stuff, it's not that the county is requiring this, correct?
The county, it would be required
It
under
would
the
be
Unified
required.
Development
Okay,
Code, yes,
got it,
sir.
got it,
This is
got
a county road, and this is what's required for improvement on the
Right.
county road, yes,
And-
sir.
And it was based on, these requirements was based on when they initiated this whole layout, correct?
Yes, sir. These were the conditions.
Correct. And to the applicant, I guess I'll just say, and I know you probably wasn't here, somebody was here representing you, I'm assuming, that said to you that these are the requirements and these are the things you'll have to do with the property to continue this type of a build-out or what you were doing. Am I correct, and can you come to the podium if you would, please, sir?
The tenant was here August of 2023. It was not us.
Right, but the
and-
tenant was here representing.
And so we did not get any notice of what the conditions would be. in
So
advance.
you were not fairly, I guess, represented then, I guess, because you wasn't here. The tenant agreed to do all these things.
The tenant said that they objected to items 2 through 4. There was a discussion with a number of you about the necessity for them and the ability to review it at a later time or not. And staff basically said that if we didn't put those through, then we wouldn't have the ability to review them at a later time. Even though, to me, there's no construction happening here. All the discussions that are happening about improvements are what you would hear if you were building a building or doing a major piece of work. There's no work that's happened to this building. It's the same building that's always been there. There's not any work that's going on that should be triggering these kinds of improvements.
Right, but again, my question though, when and how did we agree upon this? How do we get to this point is what I'm getting at though.
Staff made these recommendations.
Right
to
there,
our-
hold it there,
you know,
hold it there,
to
hold it
you
there,
guys.
hold it there. So they made the recommendations, and whomever was your tenant or whomever was representing you at the time agreed. I'm just so I can be clear.
Yes, I think they were under the gun to get in and operate.
So they
And there was
preferred
a
to.
comment from,
So,
I
excuse me.
I believe it was.
Excuse me. So they preferred to get it done and move forward with whatever the conditions were and agreed upon. That's, I'm not
Right.
I'm not debating it. I'm just
I
trying to
mean,
make sure I'm
There's an
clear.
argument from my standpoint
Okay.
as the property owner that I could hold them responsible to do all this work,
Okay.
right? But, I don't want to hold them responsible.
Hold on.
Yes.
Let our
Point of
legal
order.
kind of,
Point of order.
okay.
So as a point of order, and just to clarify the point of the question and answer period, it's not a new opportunity to advocate.
Right.
It's simply, yes, I'm just making sure that we're all clear that it's an opportunity for the board to ask the questions that are going to assist them in making the decision. And then it's an opportunity for you to answer that question. But we want to make sure that we're not devolving into a point where we're having an additional opportunity to advocate outside of the scope which has already been provided for in the 2-minute period.
Understood.
Oh, It's
And I
really more
appreciate
so
it, yes.
for the, it's really more so for the
And I
applicants
get
than
it, I
for
get
the-
it. And just so we're clear too, though, I'm only just trying to get back to the point where we were, not that I'm debating to figure out.
No, no, no. I didn't
Right.
believe that you were debating. I
Right.
just wanted to make it clear to the applicant
I
that
understand.
you're allowed to ask your questions, and then he's permitted to give an answer that is responsive to your question.
That is correct.
But we don't want to move beyond that scope in this
Understood.
portion.
Understood. Understood. So I don't know if you, anything else to add to that conversation, you're welcome to do so. However, I was just only trying to make sure, basically, how do we get here? I think I've heard kind of how we got here, and I guess I'll go back to staff and saying kind of where we are. And because trying to unravel it, it takes you back to the beginning. But if this is what was required, I think that's kind of where I am of the requirement and what was agreed upon. So help me from that standpoint, though, so I can understand, I'm not understand it, but how we can kind of move forward with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just take a step back and go forward and see
Yes,
if,
yes,
we're on the same
yes.
page.
Mhm.
Up until 23, I think there was a certain business happening at this property. In 23, July of 23, at the zoning meeting, they required a special use permit for some sort of upgrade. That's when we recommended these conditions to bring them up to the code. At that time, that use or that change was accepted, given that they'll abide by these conditions. Then at that time, since that was at conceptual stage, zoning plan reviews are very conceptual. Details are fine-tuned in DRC.
And I don't want to stop
Yep.
you right there. There wasn't anything stated, though, that we were building a new building. It was,
It was
what
the
was, okay, go ahead.
use. It was the change of use.
That's correct, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Right, and based off of that, that triggered a review, and that's where the conditions came in. That use did go on to be implemented on the building, and I believe the same tenant who was here July of 23 are operating under that intention, that use that they applied for. The only thing outstanding is the conditions remain unfulfilled.
Because the use now changed.
Right, the use changed, and the use was changed subject to these conditions.
Understood, understood. Okay, and that's all I wanted clarity. And I mean, I know we've had conversation, Allison and all of us had conversation about this. I just wanted to make sure, kind of how do we get here?
Right.
And thank you for going back and bringing me forward so I can understand kind of where we are. But thank you again, and again, thank you for your comments as well, though, so, and I'll yield back, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Being none, I yield the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Madam
Chairman
Chairman.
Simmons.
Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion on Z 2025-07?
This is Rob Thomas. I make a motion to deny Z 2025-07, request for rezoning from LIC to LI, light industrial, with the conditions read in by staff.
Can I just ask for a quick clarification on that? And legal can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that what we would be looking for is either a motion to approve the request with no conditions, or a motion to approve the zoning change from LIC to LIC with the revised conditions as presented by staff. Does that sound correct, County Attorney? So again, because remember, the DOT has requested the change, the slight modification for the three conditions.
Right. I think what, you have the right to make a motion to approve with or without the conditions, or you can deny. I think for clarification, it was unclear to me whether or not you were moving to approve or deny, because I think you said deny with conditions.
Okay, here's a question. If the applicant doesn't approve the conditions, I can still make the motion to approve with conditions. All right.
Yes,
Correct,
I just
okay.
wasn't clear what your
Okay,
motion
that's what
was.
I'll restate it then.
Okay, yes.
All right, so I'd like to restate my request, my motion. I have a motion to approve Z 2025-07 request from rezoning from LIC with conditions to LI without conditions. And with the conditions, with the conditions read in by staff. Let me make sure I read it right. I put a request to approve Z 2025-07, a request to rezone from LI with the prior conditions to LI with the new conditions read in by staff.
Yes.
Good.
Understood.
This is
Do I have a
Brandon, I
second?
second the motion. It's Brandon Penham, I second the motion.
Okay, now we have any discussion? I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Z 2025-07, request for request for rezoning from light industrial with conditions to light industrial with new conditions, as read into the record, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chair, Z 2025-07 comes to you with a recommendation to approve light industrial with the new conditions that were read into the record.
Thank you so much. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion to approve item Z 2025-07 with the light industrial with the said new conditions of what's being stated. And I don't know if we want to state that again for the record so we can know exactly what they are. And that will be in the form of a motion for approval.
All right, so the new conditions, number one, the property must connect to sewer unless this requirement is waived by the Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority. Number two, the existing driveway of number 2175 shall be improved to include a minimum driveway width of 24 feet in addition to the 24-inch curb and gutter to comply with current UDC code. Number three, to comply with the UDC code, there should be a deceleration lane constructed for number 2175 driveway that complies with the current UDC code specifications. Number four, the property shall be improved within the right-of-way of Sweetwater Industrial Boulevard to meet all UDC code requirements that will be more defined during the DRC review. Number five, finished goods sales shall be limited to the components fabricated into finished products and shall not include the sale of heavy trucks. And number six, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee, DRC, for review and consideration of the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards of the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated January 7th, 2025.
And as stated, approval with the conditions stated by staff.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion, board? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries with no opposition. And I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Our next agenda item, please. Ms. Duncan.
All right, text amendments. We have a series of text amendments for you here this evening. I will try to be brief but thorough. We had a series of text amendments last month that covered a number of kind of technical aspects of site review. What we're bringing to you this month are the recommendations in regard to the moratorium. So the specific amendments that you wanted to see in regard to the moratorium, plus a couple of other little small details. So the first thing that I'd like to introduce to you is that in Section 210, Table 2.2, we updated to include some clarifying revisions. Specifically, we've had a request for battery energy storage systems to be an allowable use in various zoning districts with a special use permit. That was something that, in the opinion of staff, our code did not contemplate a battery energy storage system, and so we have revised that section of the code to make that a use so that that could come to you for a request. So we're not allowing it by right. We're suggesting that if you wanted to amend the code to include this use, it could be presented to you on a site-by-site basis for approval for the zoning and the special use permit. We have also updated Article 15 with the definition related to the battery energy storage system. I'm going to pause there and see if there's, actually maybe I should just go ahead with my staff report and then we can take public comment and then we can do questions. We have also modified Article 3. So Section 310, this is governing standards for non-residential uses. So basically, if you're non-residential use that's in an overlay district, such as the quality growth overlay or the highway corridor overlay, there are certain architectural design standards. Outside of that, the standards are fairly minimal. So what we're doing through Section 310 modifications is basically expanding some of those architectural requirements from our overlays to be a little bit more broadly applicable countywide. Section 313, that's a small text fix to clarify that any fence must be 3 feet off the public right-of-way. It's clear now in our residential districts that a fence has to be 3 feet off the right-of-way. Our code enforcement department has just asked for commensurate language to be put in 313 for non-residential uses. And then finally, Section 352, this was the section of the code in regard to monitored businesses. That was the video camera surveillance ordinance. So at the recommendation of our legal department, we are removing that section from the code at this time. In regard to Article 4, we are proposing some revisions to the planned residential district. So we've had a few of these cases come to you previously, but this is the opportunity, like we have the planned unit development, which is a mix of residential and non-residential uses. The planned residential district previously had been a mix of 2 residential uses within 2,500 feet of an existing city boundary. You could kind of write your own code and have it approved for that property by the Board of Commissioners. We're removing that requirement to be within 2,500 feet of a municipal boundary. We're also removing the requirement to include different housing types and giving an option for a range of housing lot sizes and housing footprint sizes. So that's the significant change with that. And then we are also putting in the requirement that they need to comply with some overall design standards for residential, and I'll speak to that in just a moment. We are also making a couple of small provisions to our overlay districts, our highway corridor overlay, in regard to the 40-foot streetscape zone. We're just clarifying that that is generally measured from the right-of-way and not necessarily back of curb. And then adding some provisions that allow a little bit more flexibility into that landscape strip versus the 3-board fence that's currently required. And then we're also clarifying certain administrative approvals within the quality growth overlay. And then we are also updating divisions 1, 2, 3, and 4 as appropriate to reference the Douglas County Design Standard details. Article 15 is being updated to correspond to all of this. And then we're adding this Douglas County Design Standard Details Supplemental Appendix. So any good design guideline is based in the community in which it's located. And so we're focusing on certain aspects of residential and non-residential development. So this section is written around all of these various things that you see on the screen, such as your height, scale, and massing for your residential, and then well as your exterior finished materials, variation of style and facade for your non-residential. And as I said, we're pretty much making sure that anything that we are proposing is reflective of some of the higher quality residential development that we already have here in Douglas County. So these are some specific examples of the design aspects that could be implemented through our new residential design guidelines, and then similarly with the commercial as well as the industrial. So I think that concludes my presentation. I'm going to pause there. I know that was a lot of information, but you have the full text of all of the amendments in your packet, and so I'm happy to speak individually to any questions that you may have. And that concludes my presentation at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duncan. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of these amendments, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes for a total allocated time of 15 minutes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.
I wore my workout clothes just in case Brandon gets out of hand. I'll throw him out of here pretty fast. So I actually...
State your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Paul Zach. Yeah, I'm going to give him my address. He'll come get me. 3500 Raintree Court, Douglasville, Georgia. Paul Zachas. So I've met with Ms. Duncan, I guess three times, I believe, with the planning and zoning, discussing the building aspect. And I also have another custom builder here with me tonight. So we want to... I think what's important for us is to make sure that we're involved in a lot of these decisions. We don't build a low quality product. Everything that we do is really, I'd like to say, over the top, but I know Mr. Lindsay here that's with me today, he's building $700,000 and $800,000 specs in Douglas County. Last 2 houses I did was about $3 million, and the other one was about $1 million, both custom built. So What's difficult for us is to do something on paper and then be out there in the real world and see what goes on, what it looks like when you're out there. So what I would like to do, I know a lot of you folks up there is, to get you in the car and drive you around and let you say, hey, this is what looks good, this is what looks bad, this costs a lot of money to do, this doesn't cost so much to give you a higher quality and a better looking product. Years ago, people were on the square footage thing, go square footage. Well, now we've got a lot of really bad houses in Douglas County that are really, really big, but they're just poorly built. Not saying that they're not code compliant, but when you use the when you're pricing houses and you're using the low bidder, the end result's not going to be very good for you. And that's just not what we do. And I think another really big aspect is that we have a lot of folks that come from outside our county coming in here taking advantage of this stuff. I live here. Bill lives here. We have a lot of guys that live here that have
2
raised our
minutes.
kids. And am I up?
You're talking 2
All right.
minutes.
Come here, Bill.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? I can't see y'all over there.
April Streetman.
If you state your name and address for the record in 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. April Streetman, 8739 Club Drive, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134. I agree with everything that Paul Zachos has just said. These are two wonderful builders. I mean, they build a quality home. This is kind of goes back to what I was stating before. We need quality builders here, and they do need to have some sort of a say, input as to what truly is a quality build and what is not a quality build, what is a quality product and what is not a quality product. The end. Under 2.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of these amendments? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to these UDC amendment changes and modifications? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do we have any questions of staff?
Just got a quick administrative question. Will we vote on all these individually today?
We could take them as a package unless there's anything specifically that you want to discuss or anything you'd like us to pull out. We can certainly just kind of approve the text amendments as presented by staff, I believe.
That was just my only concern, was whether or not we were going to do them all together or not. Thank you.
I have one question, staff. Could you pull the amendment talking about the monitoring?
Sure, it was the section 352?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So in regards to monitoring business, so we were moving that request based on a legal standpoint. Was thinking about, when we put cameras in certain places, that can deter crime. So by us removing that, businesses come in and don't have to fall under that parameters now. I'm just trying to get some clarifications under that.
Did you want to speak to that on?
So we're not speaking to individual surveillance systems. What we're talking about is overall business monitoring. There's been some pushback, some criticism in other jurisdictions about not specifically business monitoring, but this idea of surveillance. And so legal felt like, given that, even though we're trying to distinguish, it would be better for us to see that movement and how it channels through the legal system, because you don't want to find yourself in an impermissible area of the law. And so we're trying to be proactive in preventing Douglas County from entering into that space until there's more clarity about what those parameters are. But right now, there is a negative in the legal community. There's criticism and pushback with surveilling in that manner. And so that's why we wanted to wait.
So in this case, we're removing it so that we'll have, for something that could possibly change based on previous
We don't believe that right now there's legal support for the ordinance.
Uh-huh.
That's probably the most clear-cut way that I could say it. Otherwise, we would recommend that it go forward. So that was part of our participation in reviewing the text amendments to make sure we are comporting with what is legally current. Of course, text amendments, ordinances can be amended, and of course, if it comes up again, we would obviously review as well, given where the state of body of the law is. But at this time, we did not believe it appropriate to go forward, given what's happening on the legal landscape.
That's the only one I have a problem with, but I will pass it on to some of my other colleagues.
I got a quick question for staff. Just in regard to Mr. Zakos's comments, do we have any like, committees or any type of a group where local community members can be a part of looking at some of these things, especially when they have a vested and a vetted interest in the real estate game, especially being local? Is there any type of groups for them to be able to review that or to help you guys with, as you make your code, to help you, make it at a good rate?
Well, we don't have a standing committee. We certainly did reach out to several practitioners in the field as we were crafting these amendments. We do have folks that regularly ask to meet with us to provide us feedback on things, and so we're always kind of constantly taking that feedback. But we don't have any sort of standing subcommittee or review board or anything of that nature outside of the Planning and Zoning Board. We do, for our various plan updates, work with steering committees, stakeholder committees, and have a fair amount of public feedback. So the timing of some of the residential text amendments does correspond to the wrapping up of the LCI study on Highway 92, and it gave us an opportunity to try to kind of get a step ahead in implementing some of the feedback coming out of that. So those are the ways we generally take public feedback, but we don't have any sort of standing subcommittee that we report to or any kind of standing citizens engagement committee around this specific topic.
And last thing, just to consider the constituents that did speak, do you have a way of like informing them on when you're making those decisions, or how you actually go about using the feedback that they give you when creating these codes?
So generally speaking, we'll certainly reach out and we'll ask for feedback, from folks who have expressed interest in a specific topic area, but we don't have kind of a mass email list other than, when we do our advertising, for the text amendments. So we do all of the required advertising, per the code for the amendments.
Okay, beautiful. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll throw it overboard for questions you folks may have.
Okay, thank you so much. Board, we have any questions or comments? Okay. Commissioner Raxton?
Thank you. So Allison, just going to the battery energy storage system, and if you could just give us some, maybe just a little additional context, and is there any motion or movement in that direction on establishing such a facility or such a storage here in Douglas County that you're aware of?
Yes, sir. We've had inquiries from 2 different sites about potentially establishing this use in Douglas County. When staff initially looked at it, we reviewed with legal. The feedback that we gave the applicant is this is a use not allowed under our current code. So we've continued to work with the applicants. They provided some feedback in terms of other places where you have had this use established. So we've spoken with other jurisdictions in Florida, in Colorado, spoke to some of our colleagues here in Georgia who have these facilities that are starting to come online. It is my opinion that it's early days for this technology, and it is also my opinion that it's a little bit speculative. But I would say for probably the last 15 to 20 years, this idea that you would build sort of a, battery station, right? So essentially the proposal that we've seen are shipping containers that are, built out with lithium-ion storage batteries in there. They would draw down power from the grid during non-peak times and then sell it back to the utility provider during peak times. So again, we think it's early days for this technology. We're not necessarily opposed to putting the use on the books in the appropriate zoning classification, which we would think is the public, semi-public district, but we're also recommending the special use permit so that this board can look at it case by case to determine if this is the right use in the right location.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, any other questions, board?
Just one.
Commissioner Mitchell, you have
Can you
the
make
floor.
sure you keep Paul busy? Just find something for him to do. No, just kidding. He's my friend. But on another note, though, there are, because I think we've had this conversation about potentially looking at affordable housing and housing in general, that I think when dealing with these codes and this kind of stuff, it's probably good that we make sure we find someone like a Paul and others to be on those committees to talk about quality and what quality looks like and what that really is. So when we're applying these types of ordinance or amendments and divisional things that we want to do, then we can at least hope that we got it right here in Douglas County. So I would highly suggest that you guys exchange numbers, because yes, when it comes to quality, from those that are realtors and the West Georgia Board of Realtors and the Builders Association, we kind of defer to someone with his expertise. So just FYI. But outside of that, I yield. Thank you.
Sure thing.
But find something for him to do, though, please.
Any other comments for? All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. Certainly, I wanted to piggyback off Commissioner Mitchell. He actually just kind of drew from what I was thinking on the subcommittee. I just want to just make sure we consider that and just not, certainly want to make sure we don't put a deaf ear on it. And we previously had our chairman of the residential committee, which was Commissioner Mitchell, who led that very well, but it disbanded somewhere along the way, and that's something that I certainly would consider moving forward, something that we really need to do to make sure we keep our attention to the things that are related to housing and the quality and things of that sort. So that's something I would want to see if we could do that.
Sure thing.
Okay. With that being said, I yield the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion on these UDC amendments?
Mr. Brandon Penham, I make a motion to approve the package of UDC amendments presented by staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the UDC amendments, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. The UDC amendments is read into the record. Come to you with a recommendation for approval unanimously.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to approve the UDC amendments? And certainly, do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the UDC amendments as read into order here by staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote and the motion carried. We have no opposition, and I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, with nothing else on our agenda, I declare Planning and Zoning Board meeting adjourned. Madam Chair.
Certainly, Board of Commissioners, if there's nothing else to come before this body, this meeting is adjourned.